This report is an amazing report, and it's really disturbing because you have some people who've made fantastic amounts of money, who are very active in charity, giving the money away, and yet they live among so much poverty as if the money they're giving away isn't having an impact. Why is it happening?
Well, first of all, what we found in our study is a lot of these wealthy individuals, and it's a huge continuum of millionaires and billionaires, 76,000 of them, as you said, they aren't really aware of the local needs. It's hard to imagine when often these two separate groups of people are living blocks or miles apart, often separated by a freeway. But the first issue is really about awareness, understanding that poverty is happening in their own backyard. And then we feel pretty confident that once they understand the issues, we're hopeful that they're going to start taking action and beginning to think about how they can deploy their philanthropy locally. And there's some great local examples already happening in that regard.
It seems that one of the things I hear a lot about from entrepreneurs who've had some great success in business is they want to reinvent philanthropy. They want to go to the places where they're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. And so quite often one of the things that we see is wanting to go to places where things are cheap, which sure isn't Silicon Valley.
That's right. There's a lot of philanthropic investments that have quote unquote greater return or social impact. But you also have to understand that we're living in these communities and we're responsible for them. So we're talking to philanthropists about the kind of communities they want to be living and working in, want to be raising their children in. And even though the return on investment, it might be more expensive to get results here, we think it's worth allocating a part of your philanthropic portfolio to these issues, to both enable a community where your employees want to live and work, and also where your family wants to be.
What is the biggest thing that's causing these nonprofits in Silicon Valley doing work with people who need help? What's their biggest problem?
Well, the biggest problem we found when we looked across many data sets is they're being displaced. Much like the middle class and the working poor and the poor are being displaced, our nonprofits are also being displaced. What's driving them out is the cost of doing business, the cost of rental space, having office space to provide services. Also, wages. Wages are going up. We have one of the highest minimum wages in the nation, and so they're contending with that, but also just competing for executive talent against some of our really competitive companies here. And there's also a talent war. Talent can go other places, including the private sector. So they're being displaced in all those ways and literally often can't afford to operate and serve the populations here, even though those populations are growing and demand for their services are increasing.
We've seen a couple of high-profile examples of these donor-advised funds where a donor like Nick Woodman, the CEO of GoPro, puts a bunch of stock into a fund that he sort of can direct what they want to do with it. Is that working? I mean, are these donor-advised funds, are they actually selling the stock and distributing the money, or is it just sitting there?
Well, what's great about donor-advised funds is they provide an immediate place for someone to make a charitable allocation, and then they get to recommend dollars going out. And those accounts actually have pretty impressive statistics. In Silicon Valley, people are spending and allocating up to 30% of those accounts annually, which is much larger than the 5% required of private foundations. So I'm pretty excited about donor-advised funds because they provide an immediate way for people to get involved in philanthropy, and then they can take their time to figure out where it goes. Yeah, but I think the issue is how can we accelerate and make them more confident? How can we educate them so they can find opportunities to give and start basically directing that money to causes around the globe, to causes nationally, but also to causes right in their own backyards here in Silicon Valley.